web.php file is already extending to almost 2000 files and 2000 lines. So that becomes hard to manage and not really good. So you have controllers that I showed in the last class. You have app controllers. So this is where controllers live. So controllers are basically classes in Laravel that have methods that you can map to these routes. So to create a controller, Laravel has a bunch of helper commands. Helper commands basically means these commands help you do most of the things you do. So these commands begin with PHP artisan. So PHP artisan, if you notice, when I wanted to start the server, it was PHP artisan serve, and you could actually do PHP artisan help to see the things you can do with it. So you can do PHP artisan list to see the list of artisan commands. Yeah. So you see a lot of things and explanations. So a lot of commands, a lot of things that Laravel can do for you from your command line. But we're focused on the make for now, make controller. So this is the one we are focused on. So you can do PHP artisan make controller to create a controller. Okay. Now, there are a few types of controllers in Laravel, a few types or a few standard types, because a controller is, as I've said, just a PHP class that has methods that you want to map to these routes. So instead of having closures that could be long, you want to write all this code in a class and just like reference it here. That's basically what a controller is. It's nothing special, but there are some standards, some standard ways of organizing or writing your controllers. So the top most popular types of controllers, you have a resource controller, you have a single action controller, and then you could do whatever you want. So there is custom. So your custom idea, you do whatever you like. But these two are the most common types of controllers you would find. They are just the standard acceptable controllers you would find. So you should try as much as possible to stick to these. So you create a controller in Laravel. So let's say I want to create a post controller. And yes, another thing is your controller names should be as explanatory as possible. Laravel developers focus on writing code that is as self-explanatory as possible. So you try to write your code using explanatory variable names, explanatory file name, explanatory class names, and the ones that might be a bit hard to simplify, you comment as much as possible. So you do PHP artisan make controller, you can add a few flags, so you can actually check what you can do here. PHP artisan help make controller. Okay, so you see this is whenever you add help before a command like make controller, you can actually see documentation for it. So you create a new controller class and then it needs the name, which is post controller in this case, and then you can tell it whether you want to create API controller. You can tell it that you want the controller to relate to a model. This, yeah, you can do this if it's a resource controller, and then you can create a resource controller by simply doing -r after it. So just what I have and adding -r. You can have a resource controller, and then yeah. So for now, I would be creating a resource controller. Oh, sorry, I still added the help. Okay, so PHP artisan make controller post controller -r. So you see controller created successfully, and if you go on to check your controllers folder, you notice the post controller. Now, a resource controller basically is a controller that has all the HTTP, all the expected HTTP methods that you would want to perform on a resource. So a resource is, maybe when I'm building a blog website now, a resource is a post. So an article is a resource. So the first and most common one, or very obvious, is the index. So here is where you display all the articles your website has. So this is usually a GET request. So you make a GET request to fetch all the posts your website has. You have the create. This is a post request. This is where you display. Okay, this is also a GET. Sorry. This is where you display the form to create a new post. This is a post request. This is where you undo the form that is submitted from here. So you display the form here, and then you store data that was submitted in this form here. So you have the show. This is also a GET request. This is where you get one. That's why you notice that it has the ID being passed in. So in the index, you are displaying all the posts or all the articles you have in your website. In the create, you are displaying a form for users to create a new article, to write a new article, so a page to write new articles. In this store, you are handling, or you are processing whatever the users have entered in the form that was displayed here. In the get, you are using the form's ID, the article's ID, to look for the article and display it. And then you have the edit. This is also a GET request. You are basically displaying a form for editing an article or whatever resource. And then you have your updates. This could be a post request or a put request, depending on how you want it. So this is where you update. You basically take all the inputs that was provided here, and then you update the required article. So use the article's ID to know which article you're updating, and use the request body to know what you're updating. And then finally, you have the destroy. So this is usually a delete, or in some cases, depending on the developer, you can use a post request. So this is basically what a resource controller looks like. Now, we wouldn't be using all of the methods this has for now. Now, I mentioned that you could have a resource controller or a single action controller. So to create a single action controller, I can actually delete this and just create it again. Okay, so delete. Yeah, delete. So I can create it again without the -R that tells Laravel to make it a resource controller. So when I do it again without the -R, it is created. Give me a moment. Okay, it is created with just the class, no single method in it. So if it is to be a single action controller, sorry, give me one sec. So instead of having multiple methods in it, you should have a single method called invoke. Now, when you add this to your route file, Laravel knows that this controller does not have any other method other than this. Now, the difference, or when should you use a resource controller, and when should you use a single action controller? So use a resource controller when there's actually a resource. You understand, like as I said, now when you have posts on a website, or probably even users, you have some resource that you can update, you can edit, you can delete, you can, once you have any resource that you can perform more than one action on, you'd likely want a resource controller. But single action controllers are used for things like maybe login. So login is one action that has a few steps in it. So you get the user object, you authenticate, you want to probably start session or end previous sessions and stuff like that. Or you are trying to maybe work with some external API. So maybe you have to generate token and you want a controller to do that. So you have a single action controller that does just the sole purpose of maybe initiating the request to the external APIs. You understand? So to use the controller in your route file, you remove the closure, and then you have an array. So the first element in the array, or the first item in the array, is the name of the controller you're trying to use, the full path to the controller. But I use PHP Storm, it automatically imports the controller for me. But normally you would have to import the controller at the top, then use it at the bottom. Then the second parameter would be the name of the method. So whether the index method or the show method, or whichever method you are trying to use. So in this case, it will be the invoke method. But because this is a single action controller and Laravel knows it has just one method, you don't need to like specifically specify, you don't need to specially specify the method again. So if it's a single action controller, you can actually just pass in the name of the controller like this, and Laravel automatically passes it for you. But normally, if you add any other method in it, so let's say index, you would have to pass it as an array of the class and the method. So something like this. So whenever you try to hit this now, Laravel knows to load the index method of this post controller class. So we can test that out. And test that out by updating this to use that newly created controller and using the index method. So over here I'll just return this is a contact page from a controller. So I already brought it in here. So if I go back and reload, so I'm still on the contact us endpoint. So when I reload, I get this is a contact page from a controller. Now basically, instead of the initial closure that we had, we've made the code cleaner and easier to manage by creating a new file for it and just referencing that file here. So you import the file here using its namespace. So this is the namespace, app http controllers, then the name of the class, app http controllers, post controller, and then you can use it here. So that way it makes your route file easier to manage, and then it's easier to debug when in case you have bugs or whenever you have bugs. So that's that. Okay, so next is getting route parameters. Give me a second. Okay, so you can check out the article. It has how to use with closures, and yeah, you can find all of this. Now next is route parameters here. So route parameters are basically dynamic parts of your route. So for example, you want a route that says /users / maybe the username. So when you do this, when you need to pass in some dynamic uh, data, you want a route parameter, you just give it a variable name. So this name can be anything. Just have to try to, as I've said earlier on, try to make it something explanatory, something the next developer would see and understand what it does. So if you have users /username, all you just need to do is make sure it is surrounded by curly braces. So I'll show you how to access that, first using a closure, then using a controller. So using a closure, you automatically have access to a variable called username. So you can test this by saying returning welcome and then normal PHP string concatenation welcome username. So you can test this by going to /users/any username. So let's say Zubs. Now you see it shows welcome Zubs, and you can with just adjust it. Welcome Pulisic, and you see it tells you welcome Pulisic. So which means you have access to whatever the user passes in automatically. So if you are using a controller, it would look something like this. Route get users slash username, and then you would have your post controller class index. Yeah. So in your index method, all you would have to do is just use this automatically created variable for you, and you can return this is a contact page, my dear, then username. Yeah. So that is it. So you can also just to test out this to be sure that we're reaching the controller. Okay, so this is a contact page, my dear police. Now you can actually have multiple route parameters. So you could have if you've visited some web pages, you have something like users, and then you have slash username slash posts slash maybe post ID or something. So maybe post ID, something like this, which means now you have multiple route parameters. So all you just have to do is you have your username and you have your post ID. So another thing to know, it's not advised to do, but these names could actually be different. So this is username, but over here it could actually be maybe person name or something, and it should actually work the same. All Laravel does is it maps by position. I don't know if you understand that. So Laravel checks the first argument being passed in, the first argument, it maps it to the first argument here. It maps this second argument, it maps it to the second argument here. So the name does not really have to be exact, but for convention and better readability, it is advised and strongly encouraged to make the names, your variable names, both your code, making them as close as possible. So this is posts, and then you can display the posts from the user. So this is maybe post 5. From user, and then you want to maybe display the username. So if we if you visit this route, users slash username slash post ID. So user slash maybe Gabriel slash post slash maybe 5. You get to see this is post 5 from user Gabriel. Okay, Oluwatobi, do you have a question? Your hand is raised.
Yeah, I have a question. Like
Okay.
the link to the file that you are using, I can't find it. My own chat is not working on my device. I don't know why.
Okay, link to the article.
Yes, to the article you are using.
Okay, should I send it again in the chat, or
My
you want
chat
me
is not
to?
working. My own chat is not working.
Okay, well, okay, let me just show you how to find it. Just search I search for routing in Laravel 8. So when you search for routing in Laravel 8, it should be like maybe the fourth link or something. Yeah.
Okay.
So zubairi.medium.com. I wrote it about a year ago. Let me know if you found it so that I would
I'm
continue.
coming. That's what I'm typing.
Yeah, okay, take your time.
So you can continue. You can continue. No worry.
Okay, so let me use this opportunity to know if the next person is also with me. Okay, I might not be able to pronounce your name properly, but okay, let me try. Oyindobra, can you do you understand all I've explained so far? Do you have questions? Have you had any part that's confusing at all?
Not really, I'm following.
Okay, I'm really glad. Okay. Hello, Atobi, have you found it?
Yes. I
Yeah,
found
okay,
it.
so okay, it's just something to make it easier to follow the class. So yeah, that is using route parameters and handling them. So you can have as many as possible. All you just have to do is for every one you create, you have an additional argument to your method, the method that's handling it. You understand? So next is moving on. Okay, that's those are route parameters, and then also route parameters with controllers. Okay, these are next is route names. Now we're supposed to actually look at views before we look at these. Sorry, give me a moment. Let me check the curriculum again. Hmm. Okay, I would do a quick introduction into what are named routes, and later when we learn about views, we'll look at them more. So in create a route like this one that we have here. Let me just create a new one. So route get, let's say slash login, or let me think of something deeper. Okay, so route slash home slash maybe payments slash field. Okay, let's say you're building some sort of e-commerce platform and you're trying to let users be able to see on their dashboard all the payments that they have tried to make that fail. So you have slash home slash payments slash failed, and then you have a closure or maybe a controller method. I'm using closures to make it simple. So instead of creating a controller and doing all those stuff, I just want to return this is a list of all failed payments. Now, now you have a route like this. This is actually long. So suppose you have many links to this route in your code. So maybe from your landing page, users should be able to see failed transactions. Maybe from the dashboard, they should be able to see failed transactions. You really don't want to be writing this every time. Let me where is the okay? Let me check my view. So resources, views. So this welcome page now. Let's say I want to link to this. So I have my normal href, and I'm guessing everybody on the call knows basic HTML, like introductory HTML. So a href. Now I don't want to actually be maybe copying this every time I want to link to it like this. So slash home slash payment slash field. Every time I need to link to it, and if I need to maybe link to it again, yeah, I have to copy it. And maybe in future, if I ever have to change this pattern, so maybe I have to change it to maybe it's not home payment field again. Maybe we are creating its own path for it that it just be slash field payments. Maybe we are trying to upgrade user experience, something. So we are trying to make it simpler. That means I would have to come back here, and as many places as possible that I have this, I would have to update it. That is actually very stressful. So Laravel has a solution for that. You can actually name the route. So you can give a route name. So you just have to attach the name to the end of the route definition. So I'm guessing you understand how to chain methods. You'll be chaining a lot of methods in Laravel. So after you have some code, you can chain on a method to it. So you have a name, and then let's call it failed payment. Now you see one of the plenty advantages of this. So when in your code now, whenever you need to, you can easily now link this using a Laravel helper called route. So route, and then you be passing the name of the route. So we named that one failed payment. So what Laravel would automatically do for us whenever the code reaches here is, when the code reaches here, Laravel goes to the route file and looks for a route that has a name called failed payment. So it should automatically convert that link to this. We can test that. Let me, sorry. So I'll go back to the code. I'll visit the main page of the website where the link is. Okay. Okay. So this is where I put the link. So when I click on it, Laravel automatically takes me to that /home/payments/failed. So see that this is actually easier. So I don't have to cram the link. I just have to know the name of the route. So I know that I have a route to handle failed payments. I just use route failed payment. And one of the advantages also of having named routes is I could actually decide to change the format of this, as I have explained the other time. So I could change the format to maybe slash payment that failed, or anything I like. So if I change it to slash payment that failed and I come back here, I reload just to have latest updates. When I click on it, Laravel still knows to take me to slash payments that failed because I'm using the route name, and this saves me the stress. So whatever I change this one to, well, like I change it to slash payment that slash failed. Do you understand? Whatever I do to this, the route name is what Laravel will check. So it just looks for a route that matches this name, and then it automatically takes me there. So it makes it easy to manage links between pages. So once I'm using the route helper and I'm passing in the route name, I can do whatever I want to the route as long as the name is not changing. Laravel would always automatically map to it. So you see that route named route makes sense a lot. So you have a new user's route. So well, here are a couple of reasons why you should use. Sometimes it is shorter to write. You get, so some routes like this now /user/new might be longer than using the name. So, and then you can use the route helper to access that page. Now, using route parameter with named route. Okay, so this is a problem too. So in a route like this now,
I have a
where you have,
question, please.
okay, I'm listening.
Now, in the case of a named route, maybe
Yeah,
like you used something like payment that failed for the original name, then you now named it to failed payment.
yeah.
So what if does payment that failed using the original name that you use normally, does it work too? Does it too
Yes,
work
yes,
or
yes, yes,
just
yes, yes.
okay
No,
the
both
two
of them.
works?
If you have a named route, it doesn't mean that this doesn't work again. Like I can have
Okay,
this /payment/ that /field now. I can actually just type it in here myself if I want. You get?
okay,
So I can
okay.
have /payment /that/field, and it still works. I can show you now. Give me 1 minute. And it would work. But when you use a named route, it kind of like protects you from when whether the route is changed or tampered with. So I have this now, and you see it took me to the same page. So if tomorrow now I decide to change this from this format to use this and this, I would have to come back here to update this to use this and this. But if I were using a named route, it would automatically resolve it for me. Once the name is still the same, no matter how many times I change this, as long as the name is still the same, it should still find it and automatically come here for me. I hope you understand now. It's and
Yes.
also it's not compulsory to use names out. It's just like easier, I guess. Yeah, it's just easier sometimes. Do you understand? And as I explained in the article, sometimes it is actually just shorter. You understand? So for example, you have a simpler route now, let's say /dashboard, just or slash just dashboard, that users would be redirected to when they are logged in. Laravel actually has a named route that it uses automatically. So give me 1 minute. So auth service provider, sorry, give me a moment. Laravel has a place where it uses a named route. Okay, this is it. So this is the path to home route for your application. So when you use an authentication scaffold, one of the ones Laravel give you, maybe Laravel Breeze or Laravel Jetstream, it would automatically create a route named home that will map to this slash home. So it makes it easier. So let's say you have a slash dashboard now that you can just name it home. So anywhere your web page where you want to link to that dashboard, instead of actually typing dashboard, you can actually just type home. Home is shorter than typing dashboard. But it all depends on the developer. Yeah, that's the sweet thing. Laravel is opinionated, but it's still very flexible. So it allows developers to do whatever they want. So I might be a big guy on using named route, and you might find someone that actually doesn't use them at all. It just depends on you and what you want. You understand now? And there are some times too that you don't want to use named routes because sometimes it's actually it's sometimes it's unnecessary. So if you have a route like slash login now, this is almost the same stress as typing login. You understand? This would actually be shorter eventually, because when you come here and type slash login, it is actually easier than doing this route and then login. You understand? So sometimes for very basic needs, like going to slash homepage now, this one that has just slash and then creating a named route for this, it's not really, it defeats the whole purpose. You understand? It's named route they are created to make it easier for you. So imagine if you are naming a route that is just slash forward slash, you're not naming it something like uh, maybe welcome page. You understand? So you have a name. The name is already longer than the route itself, like it's way longer than it. So it's like defeats the whole purpose. It removes the whole ease that you're trying to get. So I hope you understand now. If anybody has questions, just feel free to stop me at any point in time. Now, when you're using named routes and you have a route like this, somebody's trying to come in. Okay. So when you're using a named route and you have a route like this that has parameters, how do you do something like that? So let me just use this login. So let's say I have login slash maybe username now. So you're trying to log into your account and name of the route is login. So you can do route direct login and then you just pass in the username here. Sorry, give me 1 second. Yeah. You pass the username in like an array, so it will be the first item. So if the username is Zoobs now, so Laravel will automatically like convert this to a URL for you, so you can reload to check missing required parameter. Sorry, give me a moment. Login username. Hmm. Sorry, give me 1 second. Yeah, it should work. Username Zoobs. Okay. Oh. Oh. My code is not updated somehow. Oh, okay, I see. This is 0. There's another route named login at this top that's disturbing me. Okay. Okay, so this is it. So Laravel automatically puts that zooms in for me, and I'm just passing it in as the second parameter of my route helper. You understand? So you either do that or you do this. So if you have multiple parameters, you can actually like do an associative array where you map the username to zooms. When you do this without mapping it, Laravel automatically assumes because this has just one parameter and you're passing in just one parameter. Sorry, give me a moment. Like you're passing in just one parameter here, and this has just one parameter. Laravel automatically assumes that it is it. You understand? Very basic idea. But in case you have multiple parameters and you feel like specifying which one is which, you can do it this way. So by passing username and then the value, which is zooms. This is helpful if you're trying to pass in the values at random. So like in this case now, you have username slash post ID. If you want to decide to pass in the post ID first, that is when you want to do something like this. That's when you would want to use something like an associative array where the post ID is like 5 and the username is zoops. But in a normal day, if you are passing everything in like the way it is ordered, so you can actually just do zoops and then 5. And Laravel automatically like maps the first one to this first parameter, which is username, and then maps the next one to the next one. But if you want to rearrange it, you can then have to start specifying that post ID is 5 and all. So that's that on using passing parameters into named routes. Yeah, that's that on passing parameters into named route. Next is using query strings. Okay, so look at this. Laravel automatically passed, like it automatically passing the name into this. So you have login zooms. So let's say I pass in more data than this thing actually required. So like I have login zooms and then I have maybe age equals 25. Now all Laravel does is it tries to pass that. Wait, am I on the right place? Yeah, okay, I'm on it. I'm on the right place. So if I reload and click now, now notice the URL. It passes the first one that it knows is a route parameter. It passes it in as a route parameter, and every other thing that is added, Laravel automatically converts it to a query string. I hope that makes sense. So it's expecting just one route parameter, but it got more people, maybe two, maybe three. So it takes the one that it needs, adds it as a route parameter, and then the additional ones are automatically converted to query strings. And this is helpful when trying to build the same data, but trying to maybe sort it or filter it. So you can easily pass in query strings like this. So next is uh, okay. So that's that on basic routing. Give me a second. Okay, next thing we would look at is route middlewares. So, do we know what a middleware is? Does anybody here know what a middleware is? Guys, please, I would appreciate the response now.
Okay, a middleware is like it runs, it's just like it serves between like a intermediary between the user and the program. Like for example now, maybe to check if the user is authenticated before accessing a particular page. Then
Yeah,
if
yeah, yeah,
the user is not authenticated, then it returns the person back to the login page.
yeah. That is actually very correct. That is what a middleware is. But a simpler way, a way that I learned to look at it is like onions. You know how an onions is, you have some stuff at the center of the onions, and then you have multiple layers all over the onions. So look at each layer that surrounds the onion as a middleware, which means you can have more than one middleware on one route. So you could have like 20 middlewares. So what each of those middleware is like one layer, and each layer has access to the request before the application itself. So, and as you've said, a very common use case of middlewares would be for authentication. So let's say you have an admin dashboard that only the admin can access, or only logged in users can access. Before the request even gets to that page, and then you fetch all the user data and all those stuff. Like before you even get to that level, the middleware intercepts the request, checks if there is maybe some header in it, maybe a token, or probably there's a session code or something like that. So it checks if the user is authenticated, and then if the user is authenticated, it passes the request onto the next middleware. So that next middleware might be checking what type of account the user has. Maybe the user is using a premium account or a free account. Then maybe a next middleware might be the one to check whether maybe check users country now. For example, we are on Netflix. Let's say Netflix, for example. I'm guessing there are about maybe 4 to 5 middlewares. First one to check if you're authenticated. Second one to check the payments plan you are using, so they know the type of movies to display. Next one would probably be to check your country too. So depending on each of these requests, each of these the result of each of these checks is to determine whether the middleware will pass you on to the next, or back somewhere, or just redirect you. So in this today, we will not be looking at how a middleware is created. We would only be looking at how to use a middleware, how to add a middleware to a route. So you add middlewares to route. So when, for example, let's say the user is trying to access this page now, these users, and we want to make sure that it's only users that are logged in that can access. Laravel makes everything so easy. All you have to actually do is chain on the middleware method. So all you have to do is actually just chain on the middleware method, and then you pass in the name of the middleware. So there's the auth middleware. Okay, it's supposed to be there, but we've not created the auth settings yet. So when the request comes in, before Laravel tries to run the code that is here, when the user matches this path, before Laravel runs the code in this method, it checks whether the user is authenticated, and if they are, it actually like runs whatever code is here. And if they are not, it runs whatever code is in the middleware. So the middleware would have some code that is to be run when the user maybe does not match. So this is a middleware, for example. Now, so this one is, if not, this one is the authenticated middleware. So if it checks whether the user is expecting JSON, just this is basically checking where to redirect a user to if they are not logged in, depending on whether it's an API or a full web application. So if you are not expecting JSON, expect JSON basically means it's an API request. So if it's an API request, you cannot redirect the user, since you don't really have access to the user. It could be a mobile app, it could be any sort of client. So you want to first check that the user is not making an API request, and once you confirm that they are not, you redirect them back to login because they are not authenticated. And the Laravel has a lot of middlewares too that run in the hood that you don't have to bother about. So like all these stream strings, trust hosts, you understand? All these ones just check. They run on the background. They run on every request to like just Laravel giving you added security. But we all understand the idea of a middleware. And then let me actually test out this auth middleware. Give me a second. So you have slash users slash username slash posts slash maybe post ID. Okay, it redirected me back to login. Did you see that? So I tried to make a request to slash users slash user name slash post ID, and when I hit enter, it took me to login page, because that is what the auth middleware does. It checks if you're authenticated, and if not, it redirects you to a login page. So that's that on using middlewares. And if you want to use multiple middlewares, you can actually just pass in an array of middlewares, yeah, and yeah, everything would work fine. So you can pass in the second middleware or the third one, or as many as you want. So the next thing we want to look at is route groups. So route groups, give me a second, let me look for an article on this too. Okay. Laravel route groups, Laravel route groups. So I think I wrote a piece on this, yeah. So this is supposed to be the second part of the first article. So quite a lot of times we define a lot of routes depending on the size of your application that share common features. So let's say in the blog application we are trying to build, we would have a lot of routes like this. So let's say you have route get slash posts to get all the posts. You would have another one, maybe route get slash posts slash maybe 5. You understand? The post ID. So let me just make it dynamic. So post ID. You would have another one to maybe route posts to slash post. This is the one you want to use to create these posts. You understand? And then you would have another one, maybe route delete to the same posts link. And then for each of these routes, you would want to let all of them have authenticated middleware. So it's only people that are signed in on the platform that can actually do anything on the platform. So you would likely want to add the middleware of slash auth. So now you already have 4 routes that have these slash posts in common at least. And then okay, you would even want to have route put. So you have route post slash ID. So this one is when you are trying to update a post. You understand? So you already have all of these routes. These are just 5. In a big application, more. You have the login page, the sign up page. You have all those pages that don't need to be authenticated. So each of these routes have some things in common. For example, they share this prefix. They all begin with slash post. They share the same middleware. So you have a couple of routes that would share a lot of features. So Laravel makes it very easy to define, respond to, and perform more actions with these routes by letting us group them based on what they have in common and performing the same actions on all of them. So management becomes super easy if they are all together as one. So to create a route group in Laravel, it is very easy. Just do route group, and then you can pass in all your routes. So instead of these that I have done, what I would have done next time would be to have route group. So my route group, the first parameter is all the parameters that they have in common. So you notice that they have prefix. They have a prefix in common. I would come back to that. And then they have middleware in common too. And then the second argument is a closure that we cannot avoid. The second argument is a closure. Now I can take this slash post that all of them have as prefix. I can actually pass it in here and then let's say they all use just middleware, I pass it in. So to redefine this exact route, all I would have to do, let me actually just grab it, Control C. All I would have to do is just be route get slash, because this is already prefixing it, and I can actually remove the middleware, and it still has this middleware acting on it. So no matter how many routes I define in here, so route post ordinary, and you can actually remove the slash. Laravel will automatically like prefix it and just like put this in for you. So see how easy it is. So I already defined two routes now. They would have the slash post prefix, and they would also have the middleware of auth appended to them, and it is very easy. So that is what a route group is. So let me group routes based on what they have in common. So if probably I just want a bunch of routes that the user has to be logged in to access, but they don't have the same prefix, you can just remove the prefix and just have a group or a bunch of routes that share the same middleware. Now, when you have a bunch of routes that share the same middleware, there's actually I think there's an easier way to do this. So let me try to remember route middleware. So you pass in the middleware, and then you have a group. Yeah, I think this is it. So when you have a bunch of routes that the only thing that they share in common is just middleware, you can redefine it this way. So route middleware, and then you say it's a group. So a group of routes that share the same middleware. But if they share more than just the middleware, you would want to create a route group and pass in all the properties that they share in the first parameter of the method. So it takes an array and a callback. So if you have a bunch of, and yes, you can, if they share the same name too, you can pass in the name to using the as property. So if you have as, let's say post dot. So every method you create here that you name would have a name like, so if you name this one, let's say index, the name actually would be post dot index. You understand? So the group would automatically prepend all the names with this, so you can easily access any of those routes in here. So you see a very easy example here. You can, let me drop the link to this too in the message section. Okay, so okay, so this is the second way you can, if all they have in common is just the middleware, you can pass in the middleware, and then you can pass in only the prefix. You can also, you can define the routes, like if all they have in common is just the prefix, you can define the route using route prefix too. So instead of route middleware, just have route prefix, and then you pass in the prefix. So let's say post, sorry, uh,
I said Michael, Matthew, do this thing for me.
Which one?
I don't know.
Sorry, I can't hear anything.
Okay, hello, can we hear me? Okay, I'm really sorry. I had internet issues and I got bounced off the call. So let me just share my screen. And I was about to round up tea. But okay. Give me a minute. Okay, so I stopped. I was explaining different ways of creating a route. Yeah, different ways of creating a route group. So I think I dropped the link to this article in this chat section. I hope we all got it. So I dropped link to two different resources. Yeah, you should be able to check those out in your spare time. Okay, so if you have questions, you can ask. We've covered everything in the curriculum for today. So if you have questions, yeah, Blamid, you can ask. You can ask away.
Very good evening. Thank you very much for the whole class.
Yeah, you're
I
welcome.
Just to
Sure, can you hear
continue.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, I missed part of the class, but it's okay. Um,
Mhm.
the links that you sent, I'm not able to
Yeah.
get it. It's telling me chat in channel meetings. Chat in channel meetings is only available to team members. I can't
Oh,
access
oh,
the
oh.
links. Yes.
Okay. To access the first one, you can try it now. Or you guys just follow me on Medium. Both articles are on Medium. The link is okay. Are you writing it down? Can I just like dictate it now so you can easily get it? If you can still see my screen, this is it. Just my full name without any space. .medium.com. Yeah, that's it. Did you get that?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So just this without any space, everything small letter .medium.com, and you would find both articles there. I have a lot of Laravel stuff, but they are old articles. So the first one is on this is the second one, Laravel route groups, and the first one is routing in Laravel 8. So any other question? Anybody else has any question?
The question I have is like, we that we use Visual Studio codes, like because I
Yeah.
noticed that it's some things are faster with PHP Storm. Like, do you know the extensions? Some extensions that we can download on VS Code, like to make the work faster and all that.
Okay. Well, I honestly do not know, but you should be able to install a Laravel extension. But then you should go through the steps of actually importing those files yourself. Apart from imports, I don't think there's anything I've used so far that's special. All those PHP artisan commands, those ones are just they are Laravel is the one giving you those ones. It's not an ID something. So
Okay,
the only
okay.
thing my ID gives you is when I try to import bring in a file. For example, here now, look if you look here now in this web.php file, let's say I want to hash something now, and I need to bring in the hash facade. If I type in hash, it brings all the possible options, and when I choose one, it automatically imports it for me. You understand? So this is like maybe the biggest advantage I'm getting so far, Sha. So
Oh,
far, maybe when as the class progress, you get to see more features of PHP Storm. But for now, this is the biggest advantage. So you can actually import your own files yourself. And as I explained how to know what part a file uses, you use the namespace. So namespace is app HTTP controllers, and then the name of the file itself is post controller. And I'm guessing the last time I used VS Code, when you start typing, so like when you type app, it will bring you app, and then you should be able to list all the folders in app, and VS Code should be able to do this that I'm doing now. So like all you just do is type the first letter and it should auto complete for you. It has
yes,
access
I'm
to
trying to
the
look for the extension too. Yeah.
the you can check these names. Check out Laravel idea. I don't know if it's
Okay.
on VS Code, but you should. That's I think that's one of the extensions that I have here. But I
Okay.
think that's the advantage of PHP Storm since it was built for only PHP. You understand? It comes with all these things, and I don't really have to bother. So, any other question? Okay, so if no questions, I'm guessing that's the end of the class. It has been nice having new people. Thanks for listening from the beginning to the end. So thanks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Goodbye.